Now that we know what the Academy is planning, let's hear from various stakeholders engaged in advertising and its regulation. It's now my privilege to invite on stage Shri Rohit Kumar Singh, Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Government of India. While many know that Mr. Singh is a passionate supporter of consumer rights, what many may not know is that he loves advertising and marketing. The Department of the Consumer Affairs, of course, has had a clear agenda to protect consumer rights. And we have seen some very concrete measures in that regard taken in the past few months. I now, of course, request Mr. Singh to shed some light on the crucial role the Department of the Consumer Affairs plays. Let's give him once again a warm round of applause.
To make a confession in the beginning, I had 2 meetings in Mumbai today and one tomorrow morning with the RBI on inflation. And my office goofed up. I was just checking my phone. They sent me talking points for tomorrow's meetings. So if you want to talk about how did we bring the tomato prices down and how the onion prices will not go up, I'm ready. But jokes apart, Piyush ji, Subhash ji, the better Rohit, and all these stalwarts in the audience, my colleagues from Government of India and Government of Maharashtra, all the people representing the consumer organizations and the educational institutions that were shown on the screen. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me here. I object to the word used in the opening video. It said boring, and I thought it was meant for us, the regulators. But since Manisha has called us here and is giving us food and something else this evening, so I'll forget and forgive you, Manisha. Okay. So let me, I have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10. Okay. Since you are captive here, I will not let you go from here. You have to listen to me. So let me just put things in perspective as to why I am here and what does the Consumer Affairs Ministry and the department does. So we basically do 4 things. First, which is the most important thing in the country now, is inflation management, especially in terms of commodities. So we, on a daily basis, monitor prices from 545 points across the country. We see what's the trend and we try and intervene with mostly supply side measures. That is one part. The second is in terms of protecting the interests of the consumer. We provide assurance on quantity and quality. The quantity is through a mechanism. There's a law called Legal Metrology Act. And I think representatives of the industry are familiar with the good side of the act and the bad side of the act. And I want to assure you that we are scaling down the bad side of the act and decriminalizing many sections as the Honorable Prime Minister wants to facilitate ease of doing business. But when we talk of ease of doing business, also in the field that is being discussed here today, there's always a potential for conflict between facilitation of something and protecting the rights of the consumers. And that is where we as the ministry and the set of regulators that we have to strike a balance. I mean, Manisha has been very resilient and very tenacious, and she says, you partner with us. That's why you didn't see my picture in the advisory council. Because, ASCI has investment from the industry. We love self-regulators. They are here to help us. Not only in this field, we have tremendous self-regulation in many other fields, like food safety standards, like EdTech, educational technology, like online gaming, although that's not too good to talk about that at this point. So we want them to be active because we don't have the wherewithal to regulate. And you also don't want us in your backyard. We also don't want to get into your backyard. We want you to do good creative stuff, but there is a line. And we don't want you to cross the line, because when you cross that line, the interest of the consumer is hurt. And that is where our role is there. That is where I managed to annoy Dev Bajpayee once. He's there because I said that ad is tremendously creative, but it may be hurting somebody. And I think Manisha's video also showed that part. I'm sorry, those days are gone. But so we will keep annoying you as long as you cross the line. But generally, we are friendly with you. We love creativity. Of course, the whole essence of advertising, this is to be informative and to be engaging. So while it has to be factually correct, the creative expression is also to be there. Some bit of puffery, of course, is required. Otherwise, how do you engage the consumer? And who knows better than Piyush Pandey sitting here as to how to make advertisements immensely interesting. In fact, before the advent of OTT, when the satellite television programs were becoming very boring, we actually used to look forward to the advertisements in the middle of the program as to there'll be something interesting coming up, like the Vodafone dog or many other ads that we had. Sir, मैं IAS में नहीं होता ना तो आपका शागिर्द होता मैं. I would have joined your company. Yes. So, and then the fourth and the most important part of our job in the ministry is actually consumer protection. One was assurance about quantity. The third, which I missed, was assurance about quality. We have Bureau of Indian Standards, and we develop standards, some 13, 14,000 for various things. But consumer protection, if you see the whole thing, we have courts, 800 courts at each district, each state, and one at the national level. We have a national consumer helpline, which is now omni-channel. You can dial 1915 and engage with us in many other ways. And we respond now in 17 languages. That is why the number of complaints have gone up, because now the complaints are always there. But since it was difficult to lodge the complaints, we were not getting many. So the number of complaints compared to last year has doubled. We get about 1 lakh complaints every month. And the keynote speaker, Rohit ji, talked about the advent of e-commerce and how the whole paradigm is shifting. The number of complaints pertaining to e-commerce on our national consumer helpline have grown fivefold in last 5 years. So from 8% of the total complaints, now complaints pertaining to e-commerce are 40%. That means out of the 1 lakh complaints that we get every month, 40,000 plus pertain to e-commerce. Why has it happened? Of course, more people are engaging in e-commerce. But as my friends from the consumer organizations will agree, that the power balance between the consumer and the seller is now heavily tilted in favor of these big e-commerce companies. When you buy stuff from the mom and pop store, the corner store, the shop next to our homes, if something went wrong, we could go and there was this ka sharam kind of a thing, and there was a good, healthy relationship between consumer and the seller. Now there are these huge online platforms, and the consumer is so little in front of that this balance has really tilted. That is why it is more important that the ministry makes a robust framework to protect the interests of the consumers. Everybody is always willing to take the consumer for a ride. I'm serious. It's not just Uber and Olas. I'm talking of many of you sitting here. Rohit ji mentioned about a mattress being able to cure corona. I know about advertisements which were penalized by our agency, not just mattresses, shirts, many other things, paints. India's two largest paint companies saying if you use this paint, no COVID. Are bhai, kisko ullu bana rahe ho? What is this? And there's nobody to protect the consumer on that. That's where we have to step in. Sometimes you don't like it, but we don't care because we have to protect. You cannot be allowed to take the consumers for a ride. Even if you are Uber, I'll give you an example of the Uber. They were being investigated by the Australian counterpart that we have. It's called the ACCC, Australian Consumer and Competition Commission. They called us up that we are investigating Uber because their algorithms have been tweaked in favor or against the consumer who is going from point A to point B on a daily basis. I'll give you an example. If I go from my home at A to my office B every day, suppose I go there every day at 9:30. At 9:30, somebody standing next to me who's going there for the first time will get a rate of which is half as what I would get because their algorithm knows कि इसको तो जाना ही है भाई, इसका office है वहाँ पे. So we also started an investigation, and there are many other things. So everybody, the consumer, everybody is trying to fleece the consumer. The better Rohit talked about greenwashing. Just because the stuff is coming in a recycled package does not mean what is inside is green. Just because there is a green logo on the package does not mean it's a green product. Everybody is selling organic products at 3x, 5x the price. But who is certified that it is organic? And that is where it is our joint responsibility. There is a huge talk of circular economy, and I always say that it would take three to tango in circular economy: the consumer, the producer, and the regulators. Unless three are on the same page, this may not happen. So that is why the role of, and greenwashing is part of what we call misleading advertisements. That is why the role of academies, not academies, academy like this is important, because in the consumer protection, there is a preventive side and there is a post facto side. Post facto, we are there to penalize, we are there to take action, you can go to courts. But if we are stronger on the preventive side, there are many people who are ignorant about where is the line that should not be crossed. I think when you train people from the industry, train people from the government, train other stakeholders, it will do the whole ecosystem a lot of good, that you are not unwillingly trying to cross the line. If you are knowingly crossing the line, of course, the system will get to you, and there'll be enough enforcement measures that are at our disposal. So I think it's a great start, and we would like to, what word should I, associate with you, and we are with you. And in fact, this is one agency where we work very closely with. We trust the agency in terms of what they're doing, and whatever we have been doing in terms of, we did a seminar last month on Web3 and the consumer. Rohit also mentioned about metaverse. How will the consumer protection see a paradigm shift when the companies would try to engage the consumer in metaverse? So we did a roundtable in Vigyan Bhavan last month, and Manisha's literature we found to be very useful. Day after tomorrow, we are doing a session again in Vigyan Bhavan, that's our favorite spot, on AI and the consumer. And I saw the last booklet on that screenshot was generative AI and advertising. And when we talk about AI and the consumer, of course, advertising will play a big role. So we treat them as our knowledge partners, and we are with you. And hopefully, with this academy, all the stakeholders will benefit. I know there is a lot of, especially for startups and the young generation, in order to acquire more and more consumers, everybody is in a hurry. But if you're in a hurry, sometimes you trip. And what looks bright initially may not be as bright after all. And the way things change. Chat GPT was here 2.5 months back. And it's come down by 50-60% because it's so expensive to offer that, to support that large language model. It requires so much of computing power, it requires so much of electricity that it may not be sustainable at all. It may not be viable for the company. So these things come like a flash. So let's not get blinded by what appears very bright. Let's be sincere to the consumer because, as Gandhiji said, consumer is the king. Thank you very much.